Hi folks, I've decided to break these up into separate videos to make it easier for folks with different levels of experience on this to consume whatever they want to consume, right, as far as the videos go. And what I'll do is, it'll be complete, so you don't have to have any level of experience whatsoever to get through this. So the first thing we'll do is we'll install the Raspberry Pi OS Bullseye. I'm going to use Bullseye Server, but we'll talk about desktop too. I'll then show you how to install Node.js. Now, there are many different ways to do it. I'll show you my favorite way to do it. Node is just the runtime that we're going to use to run our JavaScript code on our server. If you have used C# or any of the .NET, right? There's a .NET runtime. Java, there's a Java virtual machine. That's the Java runtime. So it's a piece of software that runs your code. And that's what Node.js here is, right? So it's a software that written in C that runs our JavaScript code in the backend server. I'll show you how to use remote SSH. So we can just use a secure shell, a terminal on one computer, to access a terminal on our Raspberry Pi. Now, if you prefer to install one, you can do it two different ways. You could just SSH in to your Raspberry Pi and use something like Vim or Nano or something to do what we're going to do here. Or you could have a Raspberry Pi desktop and plug in a keyboard and mouse and such to your Raspberry Pi and go through this whole thing that way. I prefer using this method. It actually works pretty good. And, my Pi can be remote somewhere as long as it's on my network and I'm not worried about keyboard and mouse, and I can, program on the machine that I'm comfortable with. I'll then show you how to clone the repository for the code. And then what we'll do is I'll have individual videos here. I put in a test folder. I'll show you that's a little bit different than the first repository, the repository where it was in the state where I did that first video. The first thing we'll do is I'll just show you how to set up a read switch. So maybe you don't care about anything else. You just want to be able to set up a read switch. Now, it helps if you do something with that signal. But this will just set up the read switch. Then we'll add text messaging. So when that read switch triggers, we're going to use Twilio. It's a free account, so you'll have to set up a free account. Very straightforward. I won't do that. You can do that yourself. Twilio.com, I assume. And then we'll set it up so it'll send us a text message when the read switch triggers. So just send it and you can say whatever you want, right? Read switch opened. Then we'll add a picture. So you'll need a free Cloudinary account. And what we'll do is we'll take a picture, we'll push it up to Cloudinary, and then when we send a text, we'll include the link to that image on Cloudinary, the URL. Again, you don't need to, in the big picture, you don't really need either one of these services. You could just set up your this as a server, and local server. Keep everything locally. You could have a website that exposes it. And use push notifications or something like that. And I have videos on setting up Raspberry Pi servers if you want to check that out. And then lastly, this will put it all together. Right? So these three will be, I created a test folder, I may have said that, but so these will be just individual files in a test folder. And this is putting it all together. This will be that app.js folder. Oops, I meant to do this. So that's putting everything together in the end. All right. So while we're here, I'll save this as a separate video. But let's do this. Let's just look at what you'll need for parts if you're going to do, if you want to go through the whole thing like I am, or at least a bare minimum. Cool. Okay. So we have if we scroll down in the README. Folks, these are not affiliate links. I don't do these videos to try to make any money. I do them for my students. If it's helpful to you, fantastic. So if you want to have a heart trap, here's one here, but your local True Value will have traps, or you could just create a trap if you wanted to. If you're really trying to, humanely catch something and be able to release it, you could also make your own, right? Read switch. So here's a link to read switches. I open that up in a new tab. Again, find the cheapest price. I mean, this is $10 for 4 of them. It's probably not the cheapest price you're going to find, but not horrible, right? I've got these things set up on projects everywhere. And then lastly, you need a Raspberry Pi, right? So I had mentioned in the first video, I assume, but it could be a Pi 4 or a 3 or even a Pi 0. Now, if you're new to this, I would get a 3 or a 4. Technically, I would get a 4. They are a little bit expensive right now, although the prices have finally started to come down and they are more available. I like ConnaKit, so we use ConnaKit at school at SMCC, and I run corporate classes. I also run classes right at SMCC on cloud computing and things like that, where we're constantly using these kits. We bought hundreds of them, and I don't think we've ever had one that failed. So choose one that works for you. You know, the Raspberry Pi 3, you're not going to lose all that much money. This is the 4 gig kit. I mean, you could drop all the way down to the 2 gig kit, and I don't know if you're going to save that much. So 129 versus 139. You know, for the extra $10, I'll double my RAM every day. And personally, if you jump up here to 8 gig of RAM for 160, and I have a 8 gig kit sitting right here on my desk. So it'll come in a box just like this with everything that everything you're going to need to get going. So that's pretty cool. And again, there's other companies, so choose the one you like. This is just the one I like. And then, if you plan to also, I don't know what just happened to the light. Something funny happened with the lighting in here. I spent a good amount of time setting up my system itself, but lighting kind of bores me, so I didn't spend a lot of time. I've just got like some old shop lights that I had hanging around, and nothing all that great as far as lights go. Folks, if you decide you need to turn on a light, and again, mine I have in the attic, so there's no light up there, so I have to throw on the light before I take a picture so we can see what we caught. So what you could do is you could get this IoT relay, and I said optional because you don't need it, obviously. You can just leave a light on, or maybe you don't need a light at all. And if you get this one, you won't need the next two, so you wouldn't need the solid state relay or the switched cord. If you get these two instead of this one, you'll save about maybe $10. But I will tell you, right, if you're doing this and you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with any AC at all, so you're going to have to do a little bit of splicing down here. Well, this is pretty cool because what it'll allow you to do, let's close some of these up. This is plug and play, right? So there's a cord that comes with this, similar to maybe a cord on a PC that plugs into the back. You plug it into a AC outlet, and then it's just a matter of having a negative and a positive line that's going to run to your Raspberry Pi, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But you can see it's $30, so it's not cheap. But I've got a few of them here, and you can see I've got the lead coming out of this, and it's just nice and easy to use. So you're not dealing with splicing any AC wires. You're just dealing with relatively safe, DC at this point. So I'll leave that up to you folks. If you choose, you could get something like this solid state relay instead, or any even much cheaper relay. Even this won't be too cheap. All right, so these solid state relays, 2 of them are $12, $12.50. Again, these are pretty easy to use, and this is the setup I have, so I'll show you that. Now, if you get that, you're going to need a cord. Now, you could splice any cord. It doesn't matter, right? And this is the AC cord on a lamp or something like that, or just have an extension cord and make it. But, it's maybe a little bit more difficult if it's a regular cord, right? You want to make sure you're splicing the right wire and things like that. A lot of videos out there on this type of solid state relay. But if you go with something like this, it's easy, because what you can do is you can just cut the end off. So this end right here plugs into your AC outlet. The device you want to power plugs into the end of this, right where my cursor is, and then here you have a switch. So all you need to do is, depending on whether you have a screwdriver or a pair of cutters handy, you could either take this apart and take the wire out, or just cut it and then strip the wires. And then these 2 wires would just go to your relay switch. So this is pretty easy. As far as, having to deal with AC goes, it couldn't be much easier than that. So I'll leave that obviously up to you. And then lastly, the only other thing other than, saying the bare minimum would be a reed switch and a Raspberry Pi, well, you're also going to need a breadboard and some jumper wires. So, you know, 11 bucks, you're going to get, you know, some jumpers here, and you know, I don't ever find any of these, you know, these type down here all that useful. I just buy rolls of it and strip it myself. But this is nice because you can make your you can make things a little bit neater. So you will have to get and look around. It's probably not the cheapest price. All right, so breadboard, you need at least one breadboard and some jumper wires. All right. At a minimum, too, you need a female to male. So you're going to need wires that are going to go female to male, pointy end to a dull end. So when I say that, here we go right here. You can see on the end of this, right? One of the end, right, has a male end. One has a female end, right? We depending on the age group, so we bring in students as young as 11 onto campus at SMCC, and we do IoT projects with Raspberry Pis. It's awesome, and we call it pointy end and dull end. So I don't have to answer any questions. Okay, so let's close this up, and that's it. So there you go. At a bare minimum, reed switch, Raspberry Pi, and then jump down and breadboard and wires. The other stuff is up to you. So let's do this. I'll end this video. Right, this will be, you know, the first one. I'll label them so they're easy to follow, and on the next one we'll get an operating system installed.